Hello everyone. In today's video, I want to help all of you beginners learn how to identify wild edibles and plants out in nature. And I want to set the mindset and the framework of how to do it. So, here's the video. Now, before we do anything, the main thing is, before you get into eating and doing all that other stuff, you want to learn how to identify. That's the first thing, and using all 5 of your senses. Smell, touch, taste, hearing, maybe, yeah, even that. And even your 6th sense once you get advanced, but that's for a whole other video. Here's the first problem you run into. What are you going to identify if you do not even know what you're trying to identify? You're basically shooting in the dark, so the first thing is to get familiar with what you're trying to look for. And the way you're going to do that is, one, well, of course, you can go online, look up plants, look up pictures, get a PDF, or you can also use books. And that's what I actually have right here I wanted to show you. Now, with books, you can buy them online in bookstores or even visit your local library. There's probably a lot of books on foraging and identifying plants. However, though, make sure it's in the region you are, because you don't want to look at something in Siberia or something that won't grow in your area. So if you're on the East Coast or the West Coast, make sure it's at least in that region. Otherwise, it's not going to do any good. You're going to be looking for that plant and it's not in there. So you're like, for example, looking through a book, it's like, man, I can't find anything. Oh, it's the wrong region. I have to go across the country or in another place, another whole continent. So that's just a very simple thing. No brainer, but something to keep in mind. Because sometimes you get a book. Look, I found a book on foraging. But the region isn't right. So it's not going to work for you. So one of the first books, of course, personally for me, being in more of the East Coast, is The Plant Invaders of the Atlantic area. Basically, this is a book telling you of all the bad things. These are invasive, they grow and they get annoying. However, a lot of them are edible. If you go to like a natural park and they have those little community centers, sometimes they have books. Sometimes colleges and other areas literally give these books out for free. Now, of course, they're doing the whole saying of, these are invasive, these are bad things to do. Though a lot of them are edibles and come with great pictures. So if you want a free book besides the library, you can actually get one of these and use them. So just an example. Another really good book, well, it's an old one, it's outdated, but any book's kind of like this, where you basically, it's like a field guide where you identify plants or trees, in this case trees, and it kind of shows you a good picture. But look for books specifically that are not covered in text, even though they're important, but have a lot of very good pictures, so you can actually see what you're looking at. Because remember, when you're foraging and you're identifying, you look with your eyes first. If you don't have good pictures, you're not going to have a good job or find what you need, basically. So that's something very important to keep in mind. Now, in terms of just foraging itself for wild edibles, here's a very good book. It's called The Southeast Foraging by Chris Bennett. And as you see, it also has a lot of information, but keeps it simple. The main thing, of course, it has pictures you can actually identify, such as dandelion, for example, and going through. So, of course, I'll post some of these books so you guys can check them out for yourself. But an even better book is by Thayer, and that is Nature's Garden. That's kind of when you take the natural of gardening elements and apply them to foraging. And this book has a lot of very valuable things. Like, it's covered in it. It's a little pricey, but if you can get it, it's really worth the money. Basically, this book is kind of like the holy grail of foraging books. If you can get your hands on any book, get this book, trust me. So now that we got that out the way, let me kind of show you the process that I go through, or I would recommend if you're starting to forage. So I'll just use this book kind of as an example. So the first thing you're going to do is not go outside into nature and start looking at things. You're going to start looking at the book. Remember, we want to identify and create mental images of what we're trying to look for. Like I said, you can't identify, you're not going to know what you're looking for. So basically, you just skim through the book and kind of just get a feel for it. That's what this kind of flower or whatever looks like. And you start familiarizing yourself. And you do that over and over and you read up on it a bit. Even if it's only 1 or 2 plants. Learn them, the ones that kind of stick out to you. And then, once you do that, then you can bring this book with you and go out in nature. Since it's in the region, and you try to see what you can identify. Or better yet, you can actually just go out in nature, find a plant that interests you. Look at it and see if you can identify in the book. So you can do it like a vice versa kind of thing. You look through the book and try to identify, or you go out into nature, you see a plant, and then you try to find it in the book. But you're trying to also make that mental connection between it. Reading up on it, you get better at identifying it. Now, if you're new to foraging and say this is kind of complicated, you might already be doing the same thing. And that is when you go to a grocery store, think of it also as a form of foraging. Because you know the different crops, especially in the produce section. And let's say someone kind of mixed up. You have oranges, apples, someone mixed it up. If someone puts an apple into the orange section, you'll be easy to identify that it's an apple. You don't have to read all the little signs. And that's a very broad, kind of very obvious example, but you can apply that to foraging. Once you identify how the plant looks like a dandelion, I can identify based on its leaf pattern, based on the flower. It's very easy. It's hard to get confused what it is. Some plants tend to stick out like a sore thumb. It's very easy to identify. Like a banana in the middle of a bunch of apples. It's even yellow. It's very easy. That's how some plants are. And the more you do foraging, the more you go out in nature, the easier it is to identify. They might all look green, but their pattern really sticks out. And that's something that can kind of help you. And you just build on top of that. Now, another very useful tip you can use is something called PlantNet. It's both a website and an application you can get on your phone. But this thing is literally like a Pokedex, if you guys remember, for Pokemon, except it is for wild plants. And essentially how it works is, if you're out in nature, you see a plant that's interesting to you, you want to identify what it is, that's what it does. You take a photo of it, and what it does is it takes that photo, puts it into the database with other photos that people took all over the world, and compares them, and then draws a conclusion to what plant it is. And usually it's surprisingly crazy accuracy, where it gets to 90 to 80%. And when I tried it myself, it's shocking. I just take a photo, and it did a very good job identifying, especially with plants that I know 100% that they are. That's how I test the thing. Now, this whole thing isn't absolute, like I said, because it's only somewhat accurate. But it puts you in the right direction. So if you're trying to learn how to identify, it's like, this is a wineberry. That's what I think it is. I'm very sure. You take a picture of it, you upload it. I'm actually going to show you how the website works a bit later in the video. But basically when you do that, it conditions you like, this is what a wineberry is. I got it right. You kind of play like this little game, a guessing game. This is what I think. This is a burdock or something. I put it in and say, no, it's something else. It didn't match. And by constantly doing this, using this application, is going to draw that connection. It's a very useful tool if you don't know what you're doing, just to learn about plants. So books are a little old school, they work, but I think the PlantNet app is going to help you a lot more. Plus, it's already in your pocket. Might as well use it, and best of all, it's free. If you don't have a phone or something, you can use it online. Just take a photo, whatever. You can even take the old school camera like a DSLR. Or, whatever works. Put it in later, get home, put it in the computer, learn about it, take notes, and you get better. But what you want to do is, of course, get out there and physically do it. Because reading or looking is one thing. Physically finding these crops, you have a sense of a connection to it. And that's how you become a better forager and you can identify things. Okay, so here's what the PlantNet plant identification app looks like. So if you're on your phone, this is what you would actually use. However, if you don't have a phone, you don't want to use your phone, there's a website, which is right here. And basically, I'm going to show you how to do it and how it works. So right here, you can either add or you can drag over a picture that you took, either online for identification purposes or that one you took yourself. And I'll show you what it does. So here's a folder I opened when I did the wineberry video. So let me grab this one, for example. Yank, put it here, and then just let it process. And here's what it is. Here's the rubus, the wine raspberry, also known as wineberry. And see, about 85% accurate. And you can kind of compare what pictures other people did. See, very similar. Of course, it's a plant I already know, so I can really see if it's accurate or not based on that. But if you don't know, you took a picture like I did, you drag it over, you see what other people did, and then you can compare people's photos. Say your photo, but you can see based on the shade, based on the leaves, they're very similar. The stems, the sticky glands, and everything else. And that's what you do. You take your photo and you compare basically, what's going on here, what's going on there. And you use that to help yourself identify the plants. And that's why it's very useful. It's like, I don't know. And then it tells you exactly what it is. Or at least most of the time. Finally, what I want to say is, going back again to the 5 senses, is once you can identify, the first sense is your eyes. That's the easiest thing, because what you see is kind of what you get. Once you establish that you can identify the plants based on how you see them, the next step is, of course, learning about their smell. You can read up about it, but say it's like spicebush, for example. It has a very distinct smell. So I can smell when even the branch itself smells like spicebush. So if I'm like, it looks similar to other berries, maybe I shouldn't eat this. But I can identify also, it looks, because it's a little harder, but I can identify. However, before when I was beginning, it kind of look off. I think it's spicebush, but it's not. But based on the smell of the branch, I was able to identify it. And then by looking more and so on, that's a whole other thing. So if you're not sure, you can crush it and smell it. The next thing later you can do is taste it. But however, you don't want to swallow the thing. Put it on the tip of your tongue just a little bit. Learn the taste. Once you pass all of those steps, the next thing you can do, of course, is you take a little bite. The reason you don't want to just gobble up a lot of stuff you might not know is not because it's poisonous, so per se, but because maybe you have a allergic reaction to it. You don't know how your body is going to react because we're all different. Some people, this plant might be fine. For some people, they're going to get an upset stomach, and etc. So what you do is once you get that little pass, you taste maybe like one little berry or half a berry. You try it, see how you feel. Maybe wait a day or two. Then go again, maybe have 2 or 3 berries. And you build up on that, see how you feel. That way you play it safe, and that's just a smarter thing to do. So guys, I hope all these tips kind of help you establish how to start identifying plants. So go out there, get some books. Like I said, the Samuel Thayer book right here, Nature's Garden, very good one to get. Get that. Get PlantNet. Use it. Research online. But most importantly, get out there in the field. Just start exploring whatever areas. It doesn't have to be the woods. Even local area, some community, even like little garden areas. Even some trees and shrubs growing there, you can identify things there. So just have fun. You'll find something out there. So thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you in another video. Take care.